Hi lovely. So in this video we're going to go through 3 major energy leaks that most empaths have and what you can actually do about it. I think there's so much awareness on energy levels and what we're giving out to, but there's not necessarily resources and actions that are paired with that. So I really wanted to go through that in this video. And I think for for most empaths, it's such a common thing to go through burnout and exhaustion and depletion, and because we're constantly feeling these like subtle nuances that only we seem to notice, that just other people don't pick up on, and it can leave us feeling really depleted and burnt out, frustrated, and sometimes like even really resentful as well. So for those of you who are tuning in and maybe just joined the hub and you don't know me, I'm Lolita. So I'm a former monk. I spent 5 years as a celibate monk and 8 years traveling all over the world and living in different temples, being trained in the art of devotion. I'm also a spiritual coach, and I'm trained in attachment theory and lots of different modalities of counseling as well as energy healing. So let's go through these together. So basically, the first one is leaky boundaries, and particularly around like emotionally intense people, right? So empaths, unconsciously, we just really match the tone of others and really what others are experiencing. We tend to kind of just slip into their framework emotionally. However conscious or unconscious, we definitely do this. So often when we do this, we're not clearing our energetic boundaries, and we just end up that residue. We're feeling that residue of what other people, they might be expressing so much, but they're not necessarily doing that energetic work to move through those things. They're just kind of venting it, and we might be just absorbing that and taking that on, especially if it's someone close to us. It could be a family member or someone that we work with, or a friend that's maybe just going through a really hard time, and we tend to kind of not have a refined boundary with that person. So that's the first thing, okay? As we go through, you're welcome to comment which one most resonates with you, and then we'll go through exactly how to work on that, and yes, to give you some tools to work on that. So the second one is over-caring as well as over-explaining. So this one definitely connects with people-pleasing and codependency, which I think nowadays most people do have and struggle with, but I think for empaths it's really an undercurrent of what we go through. So we're rescuing, we're fixing, we're over reassuring. It can just be so depleting and overwhelming. And we often do this even when our cup is empty, and I'll go through, after I've gone through the 3, exactly the underlying cause of this and what you can do about it, because it can be so exhausting and frustrating. So yes, this leads to energetic depletion. And the other thing is when we're in a situation where our boundaries are constantly being violated, and we're feeling like we're having to justify and reinstate that boundary. And so this is, there are lots of different ways this can look. This can show up in a partnership when we're going through different things and trying to navigate that. Life is, we all go through these different challenges in life. It could be with work, it could be with a family member, and you're just struggling to navigate that, and you're feeling exhausted, having to constantly reinstate those boundaries. So that's the second one. So over-caring, over-explaining, again, it falls under that category of people-pleasing and codependency. Again, they're 2 separate things. So the third and final one is kind of absorbing the collective or environmental energy. So empaths often unknowingly, we absorb the mood of the room, or if you're, scrolling through social media, I think we're all guilty of that, doom scrolling, or if you're someone who watches the news, this is very much, it's all plugged into fear. And if we're not connected with self, we're going to really, buy into that. We're really going to be sucked into that. So things like what's happening in Palestine right now. I know a lot of my empath community, they're really struggling with that. So that's the third and final. So I just want to go through this core main one that is underlying for all these three, right? So we've got, for those who are just tuning in now, so we've got leaky boundaries with emotionally intense people, or people that are just venting a lot and not actually doing the work, super frustrating. 2, over caring, over explaining. So this falls under people pleasing, codependency, and then absorbing the collective or environmental energy, okay? So really underneath all of that is this dire need to be seen, heard, understood to the depth that we are seeing and understanding the world or that person. We want to be met there. When we are not met there, we really struggle to meet our own needs. We're going to keep trying to reach out to get that externally. So this is where we really need to come back to ourselves, come back to our own frame instead of absorbing into other people's frame, okay? So we'll go through really quick things of how you can do this. And then I have my Empathy Check-In Tracker, which is it's actually part of my Shielded Soul mini course, but I'm giving it to you at no cost. And it helps you to go through the 7 areas of your life and where your energy is actually leaking so that you can bring it back to yourself and come back into your own frame. So if we are not being met to the depth that we're seeing and that we're giving out, we're absolutely going to start absorbing, and we're really going to be over giving and over caring because we don't know how to get that right. And it's normal, it's normal, it's understandable that we want the people in our lives to kind of meet those needs and see us, but sometimes it's not always possible, right? It's not always possible. So feel free to share below which one most resonates with you. So whether it's over giving or over explaining, so people pleasing, codependency, whether it's like leaky boundary with an emotionally intense person, maybe a family member or a friend that's going through something, or if it's absorbing the collective at the moment. So let's go through these quick tools that you can do. So with each of them, you really need to do your best to come back into yourself and ground. So really that Empathy Check-In Tracker will help you and support you to do that. So the first one with these leaky boundaries and taking on. So I had this experience with a very dear friend, and sometimes he can get really angry, particularly about what's happening in Gaza right now. And the emotional intensity I just find sometimes too much. And then I'll leave the exchange and my heart is really hurting, and I don't, and I feel like, oh, okay, I remember this is my energy, this is my frame, and I just ground and I just offer that energy back, that's not mine to take, and I just gently give that back to that person, because I know he's not meaning to give it to me. He's just really upset. He's an empath as well, and he's upset with what's happening. So I hope that's, you can resonate with that and that tool makes sense for you. If you want me to explain further, feel free to comment and I can go through again. So the second one is over caring and over explaining. So I think this one is quite a big one. But because it does fall into, again, people pleasing, codependency, there are a lot of nuances here. But basically, really, again, coming back into your own frame and sitting with that silence. Often I find when I'm going into that people pleasing, those patterns, or even codependency or enmeshment, I am struggling to sit in my own silence. I'm struggling to sit in silence with my own pain, right? Or with my own discomfort. Often when we reach, we want to explain, or we want to fix, or we want to rescue, we're actually seeing parts of ourselves in that person, and we're really needing to just come back into ourselves and be with ourselves, be with that challenge, be with that pain, okay? So again, the Empathy Check-In Tracker will support you in at least acknowledging where that energy is going and maybe why. I've got all of those things in different categories there, so it will really support you. And then in other videos I can address further if you would like me to. So I hope that supports there. And just with over explaining, I find again, just being present, you know, just really being present and just witnessing, catching yourself, you know, giving out that energy. I hope that is helpful. So the third is absorbing that collective energy and the environmental energy. So I think, like, particularly before and after we go, you know, we go anywhere, or we know that we're going into an environment that's probably a lower vibration is going to take. So it's really an environment where we give our association as opposed to taking association, because it's not reciprocal. So definitely with the media and on the news, or going into like malls or anything like that, we want to make sure we're really cleaning our energy body there, and we're checking in, we're tuning in. So as you can see, all three of these really require you to come back to yourself. And I find that, you know, some people have a lot of trouble with meditation, and especially as empaths, we like to analyze things, we like to intellectualize things. So I think that Empathy Check-in Tracker, I designed it specifically for you so that you can actually see in real time where your energy is going and why. I found, you know, a lot of empaths have really loved it. So please feel free to comment below. I hope this has been helpful, and in the next video I'm going to go through how to start building your energy container. So I've talked a lot about framework and coming back into your own energy and your own frame. So in the next video I'm going to explain to you what that means and how you can start building it. So yeah, please comment below if you want to see that, and I will make sure to tag you in it. Okay, have a great day.